year is 1831. While exploring the mysterious lands of present-day Sri Lanka, John Davy is captivated by the majestic sight of a massive rock, standing alone in the heart of the dense forests. Rising approximately 200 meters above the ground, this massive rock instantly captivates anyone who beholds it, revealing itself once again to humanity as a long-hidden treasure with its enchanting beauty. A giant palace is built in the sky. However, Davy faces a small problem. On this steep rock wall, he cannot find a single staircase that would allow him to reach the city. Davy's mind is confused. Before his eyes, there is a huge structure in the air, yet there is not a single path to reach it. During a conversation with the Buddhists living in isolation, when asked how the builders of this palace reached the top of the mountain, more questions arose than answers. This is because they stated that the builders did not use stairs to reach this spot, 200 meters above the ground. They flew there. The abilities of ancient gods are a recurring theme in Hindu culture, from flying humans to those who can destroy everything with a single strike. Even the portals that enable movement between realms surpass science fiction films by far in Hindu epics. It's not just the stories found in epics, but every corner of India is filled with temples designed using ancient techniques. Corridors that create perfect optical illusions, columns that float in the air, incredible stone craftsmanship, and more. However, one of these structures is truly considered one of the pinnacles of ancient construction techniques. In southern India, thousands of temples in Sigiriya in Sri Lanka, which hosts UNESCO World Heritage Sites, a city built on top of a massive monolithic rock, almost 200 meters above the ground. Since 1982, this ancient structure has been part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting thousands of tourists every year. More importantly, the area is not just a tourist destination. In fact, it has been a place of worship for thousands of years. Archaeological excavations in the area surrounding Sigiriya show that this region has hosted human populations continuously for over 5,000 years. In recent centuries, various structures, such as cave temples, have been discovered in the area, where Buddhists have continued their worship. When examining Sigiriya, two different periods of history emerge. One of these is the written historical period. In the late 5th century, King Kashyapa ruled Sri Lanka from 477 to 495 AD. King Kashyapa had actually killed his brother, who was the rightful heir to the throne, in order to become king. Not only that, he also killed his father. Naturally, his dark personality led to everyone hating him. For this reason, it is said that King Kashyapa lived in constant fear of being killed. This fear forced him to leave his palace and move to the area surrounding Sigiriya. According to legend, King Kashyapa, fearing being killed by his brothers, built an unreachable palace on top of this ancient rock. But those who betray will eventually be betrayed. By the will of fate, Kashyapa meets the same fate he imposed on his brother. His brothers gathered an army to betray him, and eventually all of Kashyapa's forces were destroyed. Realizing he would be captured, he took his own life. After Kashyapa's death, his brother Moggallana took the throne and gifted the region to the Buddhist monks. Although the area was remembered as a Buddhist center until the 14th century, it was eventually forgotten. Its rediscovery, as mentioned earlier, would happen years later by the British. After the area was discovered, Western archaeologists began conducting excavations and research at various times. The results of the discoveries were truly astonishing. It is understood that Sigiriya, which is said to have been built by King Kashyapa, possessed a highly advanced engineering for its time in human history. The nearly perfectly flattened top of the 200-meter rock has been filled with symmetrical structures that match the natural form of the area. In the meantime, while we refer to it as a rock, the top of Sigiriya covers an area of 16,000 square meters. It is made of extremely hard granite. Of course, the archaeologists of that time did not delve into such details, so they ensured that the remnants on the site were recorded as belonging to the palace, securing their place in history books. Thanks to advancing technology, astonishing data has come to light. It was discovered that the main structure at the top of the mountain was built in the shape of a large step pyramid. The architecture of the ancient garden, right in front of the mountain, is also far from ordinary. This massive garden is continuously irrigated, thanks to highly sophisticated underground irrigation channels. The water was stored throughout the year in various underground reservoirs and dam systems. Even after many years, some of these systems are still used for irrigation in the region. It has also been discovered that there is a massive irrigation canal made by human hands in a square shape covering both Sigiriya and the massive gardens in front of it. It is known that bricks were generally used in the structures at the top of the mountain. This is not an unusual thing. What is unusual, however, is how at least 3 million bricks were brought up to this 200-meter-high vertical mountain, because no remains of a staircase system are found in the area. What complicates the matter even further is that mainstream history tells us that this structure was built by King Kashyapa, as I mentioned earlier. The king's reign lasted only 22 years, and according to the information, the construction of Sigiriya began in 477 AD and was completed in 495 AD. During this period, the peak of the mountain had to be leveled and prepared, and additionally, more than 1,000 bricks had to be transported and placed to bring the 3 million bricks that made up the walls of the structure to the region. If this had been a normal construction site, such an issue wouldn't arise, but the area in question is a steep rock located 200 meters high in the middle of a dense forest. Moreover, all the paths and steps in the area were constructed using marble blocks weighing tons. This type of building material was not common in the region at the time, and even today, experts are unable to determine which quarry the marble came from, as there is not a single marble quarry in the area. This logistical issue cannot be explained even today. Currently, even with a metal stair system, it takes 2 hours to reach the top of the structure from the ground. Unfortunately, there is still no logical explanation for how the tons of marble were transported to the construction site without stairs. The curiosities don't stop there. The structure contains various systematic carvings believed to be much older than 1,500 years. The purpose and method of creating these grooves or linear carvings remain unknown, as they are located several meters above the ground. Some holes were found near these marks, you see. Their purpose has not yet been determined. However, we know that some of the holes near these marks go several meters deep into the granite rock. What was the purpose of this? How did primitive humans manage to dig several meters into this granite through such a small hole? These remain the big unanswered questions. At the peak of all these structural oddities I mentioned, there lies this granite water reservoir you see. It is not a natural formation. It was carved from granite at the top of the mountain. Its length is 30 meters, width is 23 meters, and depth is 2.5 meters. To build this pool, someone would have to move approximately 3,500 tons of granite from there. With primitive tools, it would take months for people just to construct the pool and fill it. However, when examining the area, we do not see traces of primitive tools on the edges of the pool. Instead, we see long scoop marks, similar to those found in structures in Egypt and Peru. This topic is somewhat controversial and strange. Such deep and smooth cuts remind the human mind of the marks left by an ice cream scoop when taking ice cream. In fact, some theorists believe these marks were made by softening the rocks. This is an ancient mystery that we are currently unable to solve. However, as you can see in these examples, there are extraordinary instances of this around the world. Perhaps these marks were made using a still unexplained Vedic stone softening technique? This is still under investigation. It has been discovered that, in addition to all these fascinating structural details, Sigiriya was also designed astronomically. The line extending from the center of the structure is perfectly aligned with the nearby gardens, and this alignment matches the angles of the sunrise and sunset flawlessly. Additionally, a granite mountain with a flat top, covering 16,000 square meters, involves the transportation of thousands of tons of materials both upwards and downwards, all without any visible stair system. The claim that a flawless hydraulic system hidden underground ensures the continuous flow of water throughout the year, both on the peak of the mountain and in the surrounding vast garden, and that all of this was carried out in just a short period by a king who fled the palace out of fear of death, is presented. Honestly, there are significant gaps that need to be filled in this story presented in history books. My logic doesn't allow me to believe that this person could have accomplished all of this in such a short time frame. At the forefront of this are the Buddhist and Hindu monks who controlled the region for almost 1,000 years and regarded it as an extremely sacred area. Their claims have taken the subject to an entirely different level. According to them, there is no connection between Sigiriya and King Kashyapa. Sigiriya is an ancient structure that dates back thousands of years before the king's birth. It was built by divine beings and was intended for a very important visitor. For Adam, who was newly cast out of heaven. When we study local myths and other religious cultures, we find that the history of Sigiriya presented to us actually goes back to much earlier times. These are, in fact, stories filled with very interesting information. Since the oldest religion in the region is Hinduism, let's start with the myths it conveys to us. Researchers in religious cultures explain that Sigiriya was built by the Asuras, and because of this, despite the lack of any upward access ramp or stairs around the mountain, the giant structure could still be constructed there. The only information that links Sigiriya to Ravana and the Asuras is not just what is mentioned in the epics. At the front of the rocks, we encounter two large claws. The locals say that these are lion claws, and for this reason, the rock formation is referred to as Lion Rock. Another group claims that the claws belong to a reptile. Here's an interesting point. Ravana is not depicted as an ordinary human in the myths. He is more similar to the hybrid human species called Nephilim, mentioned in the Bible. In other words, they are giants born from the union of a celestial being and a human. According to the myths, Ravana's height exceeds 3 meters, and he is described as extremely strong. In the Mahabharata epic, one of the characteristics that distinguish these celestial beings from ordinary humans is precisely this. Ravana's symbolism is directly related to the subject. This is because he is symbolized both as a lion and as a reptile. Even more interesting is the fact that the Asura race, led by this demonic king, is described as giant reptiles. Although the claws on the rock are referred to as lion claws, their shape actually resembles more the claws of a reptile than those of a lion. This offers a different, intriguing perspective. One of Ravana's most well-known traits is his ability to shapeshift. When the events reach the present day, as usual, they begin to branch out. With the increase in the Christian and Muslim populations in the region, ancient myths and legends quickly begin to mix with them. As a result, the famous story emerges that the first place Adam set foot on earth after being expelled from paradise is the Adam's Peak in Sri Lanka. The place known as Adam's Peak is a mountaintop located 170 kilometers away from Sigiriya. Today, it has become an important sacred site for Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. The reason for this is the stone at the top of the mountain, which is believed to bear the footprint of Adam. If we look at the event chronologically, it is actually first mentioned in Hindu belief that after the Asuras were expelled from the region, the god Shiva frequently visited Lanka, the sacred land, and meditated on the top of this mountain. Some people believe that the marks on the stone were footprints of Shiva. Later, as Buddhism gained strength in the region, Buddhists claimed that the footprints were not of Shiva, but of Buddha, and that he had meditated on the mountain. Later, with the spread of Christianity and Islam in the region, the belief began to spread that this footprint was the mark left by Adam when he was first cast out of heaven, and that Sigiriya was the place where Adam had stayed. For this reason, today Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, and Muslims all climb this mountain and worship. This event is a great example of how religions compete in symbolism. Each newcomer has added their own hero to the previous one, rewriting the story from the beginning. And this incorrect approach has led to these places becoming places of worship today. The uncontrolled development of symbolic concepts undermines belief. Sri Lanka is truly a critical point located at the center of ancient Hindu myths and stories. The battle between Rama and Ravana, the construction of the Rama Setu Bridge, and the land where Shiva came for meditation have all enriched the island's mythological past. Despite the many sacred sites on the island, the only place whose mystery remains unsolved is Sigiriya, the subject of our video. Now you decide, was this enormous palace city, built on the 200-meter granite mountain peak, constructed by the killer king Kashyapa, who, as history tells us, killed his brothers and somehow managed to build it without any stairs, materials, or resources in the region? Or is Sigiriya a masterpiece of ancient civilization's superior architectural approach? So as mentioned in the myths, was it once a place that served as a fortress for beings called gods? Please share your thoughts in the comments and feel free to write your requests for similar videos. Thank you all for watching.